Welcome into Locked On 76ers, a special live edition. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. News seems to break by the second, so we wanted to strike while the iron was hot regarding Ace Bailey and him bailing on the 76ers in his pre-draft workout and visit to Philadelphia. We'll break it all down and more on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode in particular is brought to you by the GameTime app. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On NBA. Keith, I'm just going to hand it over to you, man. Yesterday, not that you needed to talk me off the ledge, not that you might have had the goal of talking me off the ledge, but it was off the ledge. I was like, all right, I'm still on the Ace Bailey bandwagon. Let's go. And then he cancels his meeting with the Sixers. Keith, I ask this respectfully. What the hell is going on?
It seems like Ace Bailey has a place where he wants to go. Now, here's the thing. He has not worked out for any team. It also seems like he may be getting a little bit of bad guidance, right? But to me, when we look at the 76ers, you look at a team that has 3 stars, and it appears that Ace wants to go somewhere where he possibly can be the man, right? And by coming to the 76ers right now, he's not going to be the man because you have Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Paul George. So this is the only thing that I can think of that he feels like that there's other teams where there's a clearer path for him to become that guy, and it's not in Philadelphia. But the fact that they canceled at the last minute, it's not a good look. It's really not a good look. But the Sixers still hold the cards because they can say, hey, look, bro, yeah, you don't have to work out for us. We're still going to draft you, right? So they could do that, right? But at the same time, then they could go to a team who wants them and say, what y'all going to give us for him to get up there? What are you going to give? So they still hold the cards, but it's just not a good look.
Absolutely. Now, first off, I would love to hear Daryl Morey say, look, bruh, and just drop that on Ace Bailey for him to come to Philadelphia. But the other part of it is, I want to get this out of the way because I haven't seen this anywhere. Was there a reason given for a cancellation?
No, there wasn't a reason given. I mean, that I know of. Here's the thing. This is the thing about Ace. We got to realize something. At first, he declined to work out for them. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they work out VJ Edgecombe. He becomes the leading guy. Everybody's talking about it. Then all of a sudden, Ace comes back and says, okay, yeah, I'll work out with you, right? To me, it's one of those things where it's just, I feel like you don't have to say what it is. You have a place in your mind that you really want to go where there's a clear path to become a star. And that's why you're not working out for the team. But again, it's not the first time that a guy chose not to work out with a team and the team still drafted him. I'm not saying that the Sixers will, but I'm just saying it's like this isn't like it's unheard of. The only thing is it's such a high profile guy and everybody was reporting about it. And then at the last minute, you're like, nope, see ya.
Well, I look at it like this. I think it was Shams that put it out there just highlighting the idea that the Sixers did not work out Tyrese Maxey and they drafted him. They did not work out Jared McCain. And I thought, well, on top of that, they talked about Jared McCain before the season started as a G League player, so I don't know how highly they thought of him. They weren't lottery picks, and they sure as heck weren't top 3 picks in the NBA draft. So I don't see the two as comparable or the situations as comparable. When it comes to Ace Bailey, there's a couple of red flags. I know we talked about red flags yesterday. After yesterday, I still wanted Ace Bailey. Today, if it's isolated and you're just talking about talent and potential, then there's no doubt that I still want Ace Bailey. However, the red flag for me is it's not just about winning. It's about winning my way. And it's not about winning. It's about being a star. Not coming to Philadelphia to go somewhere else where he could be the biggest fish in a small pond like Utah, for instance. that to me, it doesn't have the appeal of somebody that I want on my team that really wants to be a superstar that wins in the NBA. It shows me that what they care about more, my numbers, my stats, winning is secondary to all of that. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, Keith, is the biggest possible red flag a prospect can have.
True. Could be. It could be. But at the same time, you're looking at it, the agent is also looking at it as a way that I got to get my guy in the best possible place for him to be a star. Now, you can also let's look at Reed Sheppard. Reed Sheppard last year went to the Houston Rockets, right? Reed Sheppard was a lottery pick, one of the top picks going. Reed Sheppard had more DMPs than I did. Not quite, but that's a stretch.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
but Reed Sheppard, but Reed Sheppard was a end of the bench guy who didn't get to play. So it's one of those things where when you look at it, it's kind of like, okay, from a standpoint of, is Reed Sheppard going to be in the team's plans in 2 years? And if so, is he ever going to maximize his potential, right? So when you're an agent, it's kind of like it's all about a money standpoint, whereas, yes, it's good to say that I'm going to be on a winning team, but my goal and my job is to make sure that this guy gets paid and that he's in the right situation, because if not, I probably won't be his agent in a couple of years, right? So you can look at it that way. Now, here's some other guys who did the same thing to the 76ers. Kristaps Porzingis. He refused to work out for the Sixers, and then they regretted it, right? Not drafting him. Like Nerlens Noel didn't work out for him. Joel Embiid didn't work out for him. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say, what's his name? Jahlil Okafor didn't work out for him as well. Matter of fact, I know he didn't. So when you factor all that stuff in, it's kind of like to a point where, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, but again, this just looks bad. It really looks bad.
Right. I real quick on Embiid. I mean, he was hurt, right? So did he work out for anybody?
Well,
or have team meetings? I mean,
well, yeah, he worked out for one team. He got injured,
Okay.
but see, that's the thing. He worked out for one team. He worked out for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and what happened is, and then that's when they found out that he had a broken foot. But yeah, but I'm just saying, like, there are guys who don't work out for teams. Like, look, Matisse Thybulle didn't work out for anybody, right? The 76ers drafted him. It's just rare that you have someone of this high profile to do this. Now, there's another way of looking at this too. Now, you remember D'Angelo Russell? He did not want to work out for the 76ers. And when word got out, he said, okay, I'll come in. And he came in and tanked the workout. And that was horrible. So, you know what I mean? So if you're going to come here and you're saying, okay, I'm going to show up and then I'm going to tank a workout, well, any chance you had of ever being a part of that organization down the road or anywhere, you just ruined it. So sometimes it's best to not show up at all, but it's just bizarre the way this whole thing went down.
Abruptly scheduling the meeting after the VJ Edcombe instance, that I think looks bad. That it feels like you're almost forced into it. As somebody's telling us here, 3-time Ace is jealous because of the VJ reports. I partially believe that that's the reason the meeting and the visit ever got scheduled anyway. But then to cancel it is ridiculous, and that's a horrible look. I want to get into something with you in a second here when we come back. It's kind of a negative way to look at it, but it could eventually get the Sixers what they want if they still, in fact, want Ace Bailey. We appreciate you guys joining us here on a live conversation on Locked On 76ers when it comes to the upcoming draft. Next week, 6 days away, all this will be in the past when we talk about what happens with Ace Bailey and the 76ers and potential other moves. We'll talk about even more when we come back. This is Locked On 76ers. Let me tell you guys about OLIPOP for a second. Oh, how fantastic is OLIPOP? The new kind of soda made for people who love classic taste of soda but want something that supports their health as well. Just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. OLIPOP is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut, so it actually helps you out. It is fantastic. When you talk about the flavors you can get, Oh, cherry cola, classic grape. Love that grape. It is awesome. So you need to try OLIPOP. Just buy 2 cans in any store, and they'll reimburse you for one of them. Head to drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba. That's drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba to claim your free can and find OLIPOP near you. If you notice the difference between regular soda and OLIPOP, you will feel fantastic, more so than with the traditional can of cola. So try out OLIPOP, the one near you. That's drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba. Drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba. So a big conversation point, Keith, has been about minutes for Ace Bailey. He wants to become the star immediately. He doesn't need to win right out of the gate. He just needs 25 points, 30 points. He needs to grow the numbers and all that stuff. Needs the minutes to do that. In a way, if you're the Sixers, and I doubt Daryl Morey would ever say this because if it ever got out there, he'd be doomed. But, like, does Ace Bailey and Ace Bailey's camp really think Joel Embiid's playing 82 games? Do they really think Paul George is playing 82 games? Like, they know the situation, right? Like, he's going to be teamed up with Tyrese Maxey more often than not. And just like he had Dylan Harper. Now, Dylan Harper is a point guard through and through. Tyrese Maxey's still developing that part of his game. We've talked about developing his court vision. I think a guy like Ace Bailey can help his court vision quite a bit. When you're talking about a guy that when he laces up those sneakers, he's 6'9", and he's able to shoot from the outside, create his own shot, and be a good outlet player. 39% shooting on catch and shoot threes from Tyrese Maxey. I think all that comes together nicely. So is the presence of Paul George and Joel Embiid, albeit nobody's really confident that they're going to play more than 50 or 55 games this year. Paul George may be more than that. But the presence of those guys really taking away from the odds of Ace Bailey coming here and also Ace Bailey wanting to play here.
It's weird. I just think that it's a matter of guys just want to control their own destiny. They want to control their own fate when they're top guys. So I mean, you just want to be in a situation where you're going to be the man. Like, okay, let's talk about Markel Fultz. Now you are saying, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I still think if the 76ers feel like this is the guy that they want, they should take him, right? Because guess what, bro? You got to get out here and play. You got to get your stuff in, your button gear and do whatever. If they decide that's who they feel like they want to take, right? Still, you got to do it. But now, here's the thing. Like, when you look at Markel Fultz, he was the first overall pick in the draft. He was supposed to be, like, if he'd have went to the Washington Wizards, if he'd have went to somewhere else, they would have gave him the ball and said, go with it and have fun. We're going to struggle for a couple of years, but it's all about developing you. Well, when Markel came at that particular point, the 76ers were trying to win. But also you had Ben Simmons, who wanted to be the man. You had Joel Embiid, who already showed that he could be the man the year before that, right? Before he got hurt. So what happens is like Markel goes from being the guy to being standing in the corner. Then all of a sudden we know how that turns out with like the hitch and all this other stuff. Some people were saying it was mental. A lot of people were saying it was mental. So you look at situations like that. Now, to me, I get it. His agent is doing his best job that he thinks he's doing to get his guy in the right situation to where he could be the man. That's what he's doing. Knowing daggone well that the 76ers could still say, bruh, you're not going anywhere. Now, I know Daryl's not going to say it that way, but they can. The Sixers also know that there are teams like the Pelicans, the Washington Wizards, the Utah Jazz maybe. But I know the Pelicans and the Wizards really want him. And what you're saying to them is like, okay, this guy has a lot of red flags, but you know what? If you really want him, what are you willing to give us to get him? What are you really willing to give us to get him? So again, the Sixers, they hold the cards. This guy can do and say whatever he wants, but it's up to the Sixers. And let's face it, the Sixers are probably going to get some phone calls from teams saying, hey, what will it take to get that spot? But to me, I feel like you have to continue to do your due diligence. And if this is the guy that you really want, you still take him. Now, the only problem now is if you take Ace Bailey and he's a bust and he struggles, there are going to be a lot of people saying, look, this guy done told you who he was. He didn't want to work out for you. He didn't, he had bad interviews. People said he was immature, and you drafted him and he struggled. And then that's going to look bad on the 76ers. But at the same time, I do feel like, I do feel like if you're convicted, if that's who you think is the guy, then you take him.
I think a lot of people, I agree, but I think a lot of people, in a way, it's unfair to the situation because we can't, as a Sixers fan base, as a city, we can't look at it as an isolated incident. We went through the Markel Fultz debacle. You obviously were right there every step of the way. Ben Simmons, we went through all of that, being essentially not that he wouldn't shoot, that he or couldn't shoot, he refused to shoot. Like I can't think of two number one overall picks that a franchise had in, really in such close proximity that just didn't pan out for the long term the way those two didn't pan out here in Philadelphia. And I think on all the losing that went into it and all the scorned fans that are out there right now, I think a lot of people are saying, hold on, we've seen red flags with players before, whether it was Ben Simmons looking disinterested at LSU or Markel Fultz not going to play, at a Duke or any of the bigger schools. And instead, he went to Washington, an East Coast kid going out there. What's with that? There's a lot of things that just surround us as a fan base. And we go, hold on, we've been warned about these kinds of guys before. Don't make the same mistake with Ace Bailey. It's hard to separate that. But here's where I'm at. I still think he's a super talented player. I think he's going to be the best player to come out of this draft as a career goes. I think there's a lot of high floors in this draft, but not high ceilings. I think he has a very low floor and a very high ceiling, Ace Bailey. I'm still taking him at this point. The thing that the reason being for that is if you do take him and nobody else takes him, offers you, all right, you took him at 3, we'll make the trade with you. What do you want? That kind of thing. The situation you laid out earlier, you're holding them on this team. You say, all right, you want to go somewhere else? You want to be the man? Well, you got to play. Now, the only thing that I need to have caution with in that scenario is he going to be a guy that is going to either hold out, not play, beg for the trade? Do you think his camp, if he's drafted and if he doesn't get traded on draft night or before the season, do you think his camp would say, no, you hold out until they trade you, you're going to go be the man somewhere else? Do you think they'd push it to that degree? Because if that's the case, well, then obviously you don't want Ace Bailey here.
Yeah, see, I don't know the camp well enough to say that, but also I think that unlike football, like you can't really do it. Like, football guys, they'll hold out, they'll do things, they'll say it. Now, granted, I know Jimmy Butler came out and said it, but I feel like, we're talking about Ace Bailey, a guy who already has red flags. I mean, that's the easiest way for you to be blackballed from the league and you won't get paid. I mean, you remember who was it? Yes, the NBA does have guaranteed contracts, but at the same time, Kola Link, what's his name, the guy from Utah who came to the 76ers, was supposed to get traded to the 76ers, and he did not want to show up. He did not want to come here. Well, the Sixers went to the league and they basically withheld this dude's paycheck. He didn't get paid. So, you know what I mean? So if you come out the gate and you doing all this other stuff, it's not going to work. But again, we think about it. Kobe Bryant did not want to go to the Charlotte Hornets. You remember that? So he refused to work out for Charlotte. He wanted to go to the Lakers. Well, Kobe had a great career. Now, there are other players who was it? Steph Curry. They said he didn't want to go to Golden State, right? But guess what happened? He went and became the star, became the man. So to me, I don't think that is going to be one of those situations where he's going to hold out. I just feel like right now they feel like they got a little bit leverage and they want to get him in a great situation, the best situation for him, knowing, because let's face it, if you go to Washington, right? If you go to Washington, That's the place where guys become stars just because they put up stats on bad teams. So that's how they get paid. So they're looking at, they could be, and I'm just speaking, they could be looking at it from that standpoint. But at the same time, I feel like you get drafted and you know that, you could destroy your career and be out of the league. Oh, you're showing up. You're definitely showing up.
All right. Well, I like that they hold that card. When we come back, Keith, I do want to ask you about the 76ers' interest right now in Ace Bailey, if you still think he's their number one guy going into the draft. Again, just 6 days away. I want to ask you that point blank when we come back. Also, we'll take some comments from the people joining us now that we're doing this live reaction show to the Ace Bailey news. We'll get into it more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers podcast. Hey, you want to go to a game? You want to go to a concert? Want to go to a comedy show? GameTime app has you covered. NBA Finals, lucky enough to get a ticket. Try the GameTime app if you're in the area. Try that out. GameTime app has you covered when you want to go to a Sixers game, an Eagles game, Phillies. GameTime app is where it's at. When you talk about buying tickets, it's never been easier than right now with the GameTime app. Just download the app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON NBA, for $20 off your first purchase. Download the GameTime app today to make last-minute tickets the easiest purchase you've ever seen when it comes to buying tickets. You could even view your seat before you buy it, so you take the guesswork out of buying tickets. And how about the GameTime guarantee? Guaranteed lowest price. You find tickets on another site or app for less, they'll credit your account 110% of the difference. And don't forget about the GameTime Picks feature. It filters out all the fluff so you see it the best prices, the best seats right there, front and center. And also in Philly, FIFA Club World Cup matchups available on the GameTime app as well. So download the GameTime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, Keith, the $64,000 question is whether or not the 76ers still look at Ace Bailey as the third overall pick in the NBA draft. Would he still be the number one spot on their draft board?
I don't know anymore. I mean, just because of this now, of course, I mean, I just don't. I don't. Because, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like that, Ace Bailey has some red flags. Yes, he does have a huge upside. But I think that the more that we see stuff like this, it's like you got to understand that you got to be 100% careful on what you do, right? Mm. You have to be. And then, like, the one thing we said, like, if it works out, it's great. It does. If it works out, it's great. But if it doesn't work out, then all of a sudden you're going to have people saying, just like Joel Embiid, like, dude, you knew Joel Embiid had a bum knee, but you still gave him a 3-year extension a year before it was time to. Well, they're going to say, dude, you know that Ace Bailey had some red flags, and you know he didn't want to work out for you, but you still went ahead and drafted him. Now, if you are convicted and you feel like he's that guy, then you take him. But if not, then no, I don't think they will, just because of, like, it's telegraphing things, right? But so to me, I don't think, like, I feel like when they were at the combine and he had a poor interview, well, people said that he interviewed poorly with the teams he talked to. I think that when stuff like that happens, then you have to scratch your head and say to yourself, is this the guy that we want? Right? But then again, you look at the upside and you say it, but the more that things keep happening, yeah, I think there becomes some doubt. There becomes some doubt. That's where you have to be 100% sure that this is what you want to do. But you do not want to be like the Charlotte Hornets who traded Kobe Bryant, who traded Kobe to the Lakers. You don't want to do that. So you have to be 100% sure that this is the guy you want. I don't know if they are 100% sure.
The only thing that would come out that would make me go, okay, no, forget about it. We're not taking him. The only thing that could come out in that regard that make me go, yeah, no way, is if it gets out there that somebody just simply says, nope, not taking him. Or I'm sorry, if somebody simply says that Ace Bailey does not want to play for the 76ers. He wants to play for a team where he's going to get those minutes and be the star right away. That's the only thing that could come out canceling a meeting, fine. As you've talked about before, it's happened. Whatever. The talent level is undeniable. What he could be for the 76ers down the line, undeniable. And also, coming to Philadelphia, I think he'd be pleasantly surprised by the giant role he'd be playing on this team sooner than he would expect. I think he'd be pleasantly surprised by it. Now, Daryl Morey can't use that as a selling point. Like, you think Joel Embiid's going to play? You think Paul George is saying, come on. You're going to get plenty of minutes here. You're going to get plenty of opportunities to get those numbers. I think he's going to be pleasantly surprised by the amount of time he'd get here in Philadelphia and also to grow with Tyrese Maxey. So that's why I'd still take him at this point. Now, if it comes out that he really doesn't want to play here and he just flat out that comes out, then all right, then you got to move on. Because then if you draft him, then other teams know you're stuck with him. So you're not going to get top value if you just were to trade the 3rd overall pick to begin with. So that's where I'm at in this whole situation. Speaking of trades, real quick, there's just conversation going on about Paul George potentially being moved on draft day. Have you heard any whispers of that?
I mean, remember we heard that a month ago. I mean,
right.
Well, actually, that's before you and I start working together. But yeah, like, I mean, you heard that before. The Sixers denied it. I mean, you're hearing a lot of other things, but then people are coming back with it. I mean, yeah, you like, here's the thing. Let's be real. If the Sixers are, even if the Sixers are going to admit it or not, and they're going to come out and publicly and say, guess what? We got this big three. We want to bring them all back together again. They realize the restrictions that they have with the salary, right? So, like, with Paul George making all that money, Joel Embiid. So, like, believe me, if they can get a team that can take Paul George, even though they'll say publicly we're not going to do it, yes, they would try to do it. But at this particular time, the week before the draft, you always hear all types of things. There are going to be certain things that double back that you heard before. Like, hey, I even broke this story, but then they're saying, but they added something to it, which isn't true. You know what I mean? You're like looking at it like, yo, this didn't happen. But this is the week of misinformation and rehash information. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll do it. You know what I mean? So, we'll do it. And somebody is saying, I'm disappointed at Black media agreeing to bash this brother. His mama said, say something good or shut up. My mama said, well, I don't think people are bashing the guy, and I don't think it's a black and white issue. And if you're talking, so I don't know where that came from. I think what people are talking about is that Ace Bailey was scheduled to work out for the 76ers. He did not show up, and that's just how it is. People are talking about it. Now, Whatever happens with that just happens. But I don't think that is a black and white issue. And, I hate when people always say that, but, it's not. Unfortunately, if Ace Bailey was a white guy, I think that people will be talking about him not showing up for the Sixers as well.
Anybody cancel a meeting with a team that could pick him in the draft in top 3, that's getting talked about. That's going to get talked about. I do want to get a couple other of these in here because there is one. I'm seeing a lot of this, and I know we talked about this briefly yesterday, Keith, but it had to do with the age. Here we go. Duck Holiday. When I interviewed for Dunkin' Donuts at 18, I'm sure I didn't do well. Like, here's my point. All these guys are 18, 19 years old. It's not like, wow, that 41-year-old really interviewed well with the Sixers. He's going to get drafted. Like, no, all these guys are young. We talked about it yesterday. There's a difference between the guy that shows up in a suit and tie for an interview and a difference between the guy that shows up in a T-shirt and jeans. Like, one guy is really trying to put every ounce of his best foot forward. Another guy's like, yeah, I could do this job, but take me as I am. That kind of thing. And the other thing, on that same note, Keith, the other thing that drives me crazy is I listened to the draft combine press conference that Ace Bailey had, and I believe it was the Utah reporter that asked him, hey, what would it be like to come to the Jazz? Would you be okay falling out of the top 3 or whatever? And he goes, oh, just to hear my name called would be a blessing at any point during draft night. And I'm like, that's a month ago, whatever, months ago. Oh, that's the guy I want to see the Sixers. That's the guy I want to see come to the 76ers. And then ever since then, doesn't want to meet with teams, makes an appointment, cancels the appointment, and just the overall message is right now he doesn't want to come to Philadelphia. That's the overall message.
Yeah, here's the thing that I'll say about Ace Bailey. Like, I don't think none of this is Ace Bailey. I think Ace Bailey is going to get criticized for this, right? Now, also, when you got to realize when people ask you to interview players, especially in that platform, what you say is you always say, oh, I would love to come in. I mean, it could be the last team in the first round. You want to go first. You're going to say you love it. The problem that's going on right now is, and with Ace Bailey with the interviews, when people criticize him over the interviews, I don't criticize him. I'm wondering, is he getting the right advice? Right. Like, was he prepped for it? Because, yes, you're 18 years old, right? I mean, heck, it's just like my daughter. When my daughter was playing sports, you know, play sports. You make sure when she was young, like, hey, make sure you tie your sneakers, your shoelaces extra tight. Make sure you do this. You got to hydrate. You have to do all this other stuff. So people are correct when you say it's an 18-year-old guy. The question that I have is, who is leading the show? Who is giving him the thing? Like, because it's poor management. And what happens is people get on here or people talk about it. We don't talk about the guidance he's getting. It looks like the guy is a bad guy. Like when I talked to the scouts who told me his immaturity, it's not that he's a bad guy. He's goofy. He does certain things. He laughs. He jokes when you shouldn't. That's like when you were a kid, when you were sitting at the dinner table. I remember my grandmother would tell me, hey, you don't play with your food. Hey, you don't laugh and you don't joke at the dinner table. But if my grandmother didn't tell me that, shucks, I'll be standing in my chair talking about, yo, let's get this. The steak is the bomb. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So in other words, I'm not blaming the kid. I'm questioning, is he getting the right leadership or right guidance? That's what I'm talking about.
You and I had very similar grandmothers. I'm just learning this. You and I had very similar grandmothers. All right, folks, that's the show. We appreciate you guys joining us for this live edition of Locked On 76ers. We will be back with you guys tomorrow to see if any more fallout. Keith, I know we ended the show if it was yesterday or the day before, and you were literally getting a call at that moment. So I know your phone's going to be ringing off the hook. It's not going to stop. Blowing up is the expression nowadays. It's going to be blowing up constantly. So we'll let you get back to that. We're going to be talking more 76ers tomorrow on Locked On 76ers. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. Make sure you guys are following Keith Pompey across all social media platforms and reading them on Inquirer.com. As for the Locked On loyalists, you got me here with Locked On 76ers with Keith now 5 days a week. You got me on your Phillies postcast. I'll be on tonight after the Phillies hopefully take 3 of 4 against the Marlins and work themselves in a first-place tie with the New York Mets for the NL East before their weekend series. So catch me on Locked On Phillies YouTube channel as well. And then coming up at noon today, a live Locked On Eagles podcast. Me, Jason Martinez, and Louis DiBiase have you covered for that as well. So like and subscribe to all things Locked On. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow. Look forward to breaking down the latest in the 76ers with Locked On 76ers. And also, don't forget, Locked On NBA Big Board Show. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, every interview, every canceled workout or interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Catch you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.